My name is Pragna Nidumolu, and I'm the founder of EcoTeens, an initiative that helps raise awareness of climate change and how teens can come together across the globe to do their part in making this world a greener place for them and future generations to live in. As a part of EcoTeens, we launched a podcast called Green Stories to bring diverse perspectives on sustainability and what we all can do as global citizens to address climate change. Today, we have a very special guest in this episode, Rebecca Gildiner.
Hi,
Rebecca
everyone.
is the Director of Sustainability at Daily Harvest. She has 10 plus years of experience across the food system, from farm work and food service to education and waste management. Rebecca received her Master of Environmental Management at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, where she focused on food systems and corporate sustainability. She supported sustainability strategy development for companies such as IKEA Food Services, Shake Shack, Yale University, and sustainability. That's a really impressive resume.
Thank you. I've had many years to build it.
So getting into the questions, can you explain a little bit about what the Daily Harvest is and what role you play in it?
Yeah, so Daily Harvest is a plant-based frozen meal delivery company. So we send plant-based, gluten-free meals across the US to people's homes to make it really convenient for them to eat lots of diverse fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans and lentils, lots of pulses. So I am our director of sustainability, which means that I help the company both manage its environmental and social impacts and identify areas where it's positioned to really go above and beyond and invest in having a positive impact.
That's really interesting. So how do you stay sustainable? Like what sort of things do you implement?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for us, we really are passionate about fruits and vegetables, particularly organic fruits and vegetables. So we truly believe that regenerative agriculture, right, the space that we're learning a lot about, really has to be organic, that we don't want synthetic chemicals in our water, in our air. It's not good for farm workers or for farmers. It's not good for their health, and it's not good for our body's health either. So we're really invested in helping farmers transition their land to organic, which is a 3-year process that can put a lot of burden on farmers from a financial perspective, from an equipment perspective. It's a time period where growers can't, they're selling their product as conventional. They can't sell it as organic yet, but they're also not, they're using organic practices. So we help them through that 3-year period. By giving them more money for their crop and giving them a longer contract so that they know we're going to support them through those 3 years. So we are really committed to scaling organic agriculture with regenerative practices and bringing a lot more, as I said earlier, a diversity of foods into people's bodies, which we know is healthier for the soil and also healthier for human health. But we also are focused on our packaging, right? We have sustainable packaging initiatives. We're measuring our carbon footprint right now and understanding how we can reduce it. So we really think of sustainability as anywhere we have a social and environmental impact.
That's really interesting. And I think with small businesses and any businesses with packaging, they use so much plastic and they just overlook that factor. And I think that's really cool that you make it sustainable. So talking about sustainability, how did you get into this?
Yeah, so I have always been very passionate about food. So I work in sustainability from the perspective of being a food lover, someone that became a vegetarian when I was 16 years old. I was very passionate and compassionate for animals. I always loved nature and I always loved food. And throughout my life, I've started to understand more and more how the food on our plate is connected to the environment and to human health. And I've had many jobs, as you mentioned earlier on. I've worked on farms overseas. I've worked in ice cream shops. I've worked at Whole Foods, right? I've done lots of different jobs. And there was a job right before I went to grad school where I was working in a social enterprise that brought healthy school meals to kids in New York City. And I was running our education program. So we were doing cooking and gardening programs with kids 3 to 18. and really teaching them about where the food came from, that a carrot is a root, right? That an artichoke is a flower, all of those things, and really bringing that farm to table education to kids. And what it really cultivated in me was that connection of, wow, our food does have an environmental impact, and it's really hard for consumers to make those decisions and to have all of the knowledge they need to know. So I went back to graduate school to focus on sustainability in a private sector in the business world, so I could help businesses bring values of sustainability into the way that they do business, into their operations, and reduce the environmental and social impact that unfortunately a lot of food businesses have created over the years.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of kids, they don't have that education. They're not exposed to this sort of information, so they don't know what choices to make. I'm a vegetarian too, and I have a lot of non-vegetarian friends, and I know it's really hard to make that choice to eat like in a more sustainable way, in a way that's better for this world. But it just takes time, and there are also so many, and for bodybuilders, they say they need
Mm,
protein and meat's their only source of protein, but there's so many sources in vegetarian foods, and I really agree with that with you.
there really is. Beans are magical foods.
So, what are ways people can be sustainable in their everyday lives?
Yeah, there's so many ways, right? And I think it's important to recognize that no matter your means, there's ways that you can be sustainable. I'm just thinking about waste that you're creating on a daily basis, finding ways that you can compost. I think that composting is not only great for the environment, but it creates a lot of consciousness, right? When you start collecting your food scraps separately, you start really recognizing and feeling how sad it is that we waste food, right? So it makes you reduce it, and it also contributes to that circular economy that we want to keep. We want to keep waste, creating new things. But the thing that I think is the most important is for all of us to really be cultivating awareness and appreciation that everything around us comes from nature. Right, we're in a world where we go into a store and we see a million things, and they're not connected to a tree or a fossil fuel or a plant, but everything comes from something that nature gives us. And I think the more that we can cultivate that awareness and appreciation, the more sustainable we become in our everyday actions, because we have appreciation for where it's coming from, right? And I
Mhm.
think it's really easy as a human in this day and age to feel really disconnected from nature.
I totally agree. And with more and more technology, people are just losing touch with like where everything comes from. And you said before, not many people are like educated on this stuff. And it should be more awareness should be spread. And I think that's really cool that you mentioned that.
Yeah, exactly.
So my final question is, what is your message to the community to get their act together and support sustainability?
When you say community, what community do you mean? Like the world?
And teens and the next generation mostly because they're the ones leading the way for the future generations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the most radical tool we have is knowledge. I think that knowledge is power. And to your point, right, the especially in food, right, the industrial food industry for so many years has kept us in the dark of where things come from and the impacts they have. And I think just the more we can educate ourselves, empower ourselves with knowledge, ask companies hard questions, say, what are you doing about your packaging? Why aren't you sourcing responsibly? What are you doing to source responsibly? Right? Really holding businesses accountable by empowering yourself with the knowledge of our food system, and really not just our food system, but just of everything that we consume and buy, of capitalism in general. That is what we need. We need people to hit the streets with knowledge and power. And we need the youth so badly. We need to change the world immediately. So thank you for putting this series together and educating your community and empowering everyone. it's so important, it's really an honor to be here.
I really appreciate that. And like I said before, awareness is really important. When people don't know, they can't do anything. So
Exactly.
people like you help inspire other people to make a change. And I'm honored to have you here today. And it's so great talking to you.
You too, Pragna. You're inspiring many as well. So thank you for your amazing work.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And it was such a pleasure to talk to you. See you in the next one.